What up, YouTubers? It's your boy, the Visionary. Welcome to another episode of Fireside Chats. The topic of this video was originally supposed to be a mini topic, which was part of another video segment called Fireside Chat Preludes. But because of the complexity of the video, of the topic itself, and the fact that it both connects and verifies to a theory I had about another event that occurred like a year ago within the media, I thought it just deserved its own video. Alright, so the story takes off where it was in the news and in the newspaper and on video and YouTube and all that, where there was an investigation into the Federal Reserve and vendors that do business with the Federal Reserve about a rash of gold bars that they've been selling that turned out to be fake. So what happens is they test the gold and they drill holes into the gold, and they found out that inside the bars were hollowed out, and in its place will put this other element, this other metal called tungsten. Tungsten basically weighs pretty much the same, it has the same similar properties, so on and so forth, yada yada yada. So the media is basically saying a lot of people are upset, especially the vendors, because they paid a lot of good money for the gold, and it turns out some of their their inventory is fake. But the Federal Reserve tries to back up the quality of the gold and say listen, you just have to be careful and only buy from reputable vendors, so on and so forth. But even the vendors themselves who are reputable don't even know which bars are fake and which bars are not. So when I saw this story, a light popped off in my head. I was like, yo, wait a minute. I remember saying something that had to do with the Fed and gold like a year ago. So let's take a trip back in time. Let's rewind to 2011, and let's open up a newspaper, and in that newspaper you'll find a story about this guy named Strauss-Kahn. Now Strauss-Kahn is basically the head and CEO of the IMF, which is the International Monetary Fund. Now the International Monetary Fund is basically like the Federal Reserve but for Europe and the rest of the world. So what happened at the time was, as he was in New York, he gets hit with a rape case by a hotel maid who was working in the hotel that he was staying in at the time. So she says, this guy raped me and so on and so forth, and I'm pressing charges on him. So, they take it to court, and in the end, the prosecutor basically says, the maid, there's too many holes in the story, so we're going to drop the case, and that's it. Strauss-Kahn files a countersuit, but, that all of that was swept under the rug. So, in the eye of the storm, all this, in the ruckus, in the mess, right? As everyone is basically distracted and confused and dumbfounded by this story that's taking, a major piece of the media, no one's ever stopping to think, what was this guy in New York for? Like, no one ever, I know it's random, but no one said, yo, why is he here? What was his objective? Was he on business or whatnot? Yada, yada, yada. So I did a bit of research, for a while, that back then, and I found out that the reason why he was here is because he was supposed to oversee a business transaction between the Federal Reserve and the IMF. And the business transaction was supposed to be a transfer of, I think, 140-something tons of gold from the Federal Reserve to the IMF in Europe. But he was upset by something. There was a discrepancy in the gold. There was a problem, but they never explicitly state what it was. They just said, I'm disappointed. We were supposed to have done this transaction a while ago, and now that I'm here, there was a discrepancy. There's something wrong. I can't talk about it. So as he's leaving with his team to go back to Europe, this happens at the exact same time that the rape case occurred, the rape case accusation game. So he gets arrested, he gets picked up, he gets taken to court, and that's when the entire thing, hits the media. So my thing is, what problem could you possibly have with the Federal Reserve's gold? What was it? So in my head, I'm thinking, I just randomly come up off the top of my head. I'm like, what happened? I think what happened was the Federal Reserve do not have a certain amount of gold that they were supposed to pay off. So what they tried to do was take the gold that they have and mix it with another metal, a metal that was similar in texture or properties and so on and so forth. Then make the gold bars and try to pass them off to the IMF to pay for whatever debt, so on and so forth. So this was off the top of my head. I didn't give it a second thought, but I was like, this is my theory on what was going on. So A year passes, and I see the story where the Federal Reserve and the vendors that do business with them have found out that in their inventories they have fake gold bars, and that there was an immediate connection, like right there, like wait a minute, that holy shit, like I remember saying something about that. So to verify this, right, between the time the story came out and now, I was online researching something, and I came across this video where, side note, CNN and C-SPAN always do coverage of Senate and Congress passing bills, or whenever there's a congressional hearing against some organizing body or whatever. When they're questioning them about something or some discrepancy or whatever's going on, you know, they always record it, they put it on the news, not the news, but they put it on certain channels so people can watch it and follow it. So the video I was watching was like a snippet of a situation where I think on the committee, the one who was doing the questioning, Ron Paul was asking a member of the Federal Reserve about a discrepancy in their accounts and liabilities ledger, and they were saying, you know, why is it that if you don't have any gold, what's backing our money or something like that, you know, because it says here that you have a certain amount of gold, but on the other side of the ledger it says you only have a certain amount of gold, and yet you use that to back the value of the dollar or something like that. So the guy says, oh, the Federal Reserve does not have any gold. We haven't had gold since like 1970 something, or I forgot the exact date. But the fact that he said the Federal Reserve does not have any gold, it says something to me. You know what I mean? Like, he specifically said something else. He said, oh, what you see on the ledger is basically certificates of ownership of gold, but we do not have gold. So I'm sitting there going, wait. The Federal Reserve does not have gold at all. No, nothing to back up, you know, our money at all. We just have paper. We don't have gold. We don't have any of that in the Federal Reserve. So all the stuff that's happening in the, you know, the stock market, the trading in gold and you know, the precious metals, commodities, and all that stuff, we don't have. That's like the most important commodity that people value and trade, you know, extrinsically. So I'm sitting there like, wait a minute. So that's another piece of the puzzle. So let's start from the beginning. If my thesis is right, Strauss-Kahn was coming over to New York to oversee a transaction between the Federal Reserve and the IMF, where he was supposed to transfer ownership of gold from the Federal Reserve to an IMF in a certain amount. The Federal Reserve does not have any gold, or more or less they have gold but not enough to pay for the debt that they have to, you know, owe the IMF. So what they try to do is mix the gold with some other element to make up for the difference. Strauss-Kahn comes over, he does the test and finds out, yo, there's something wrong with the gold. He finds out they tried to mix the gold and they can't pay the debt and the transaction is fucked up. So he goes with his team back to Europe. The US, pushed by the CIA, say, yo, we can't allow that to happen. So what they do is set him up with this chick that works in the hotel, a plant, to trick him and to entrap him, to keep him from going back. So during the entire media circus that was occurring around his case, they worked out a deal with him. Yo, if you don't say this and that, we'll let you go. I think he cut a deal. He leaves. The whole thing is swept under the rug. A year later, and in between that year, you hear video. You know, this congressional hearing happens where Ron Paul is questioning the Federal Reserve. Do you have the gold or do you not? And the Federal basically says, no, we do not have gold. We do not. We just sell and give out certificates of ownership of gold. Period. So now, a little past that, where this article comes out, the article basically says the Federal Reserve and the vendors that do business with the Federal Reserve have been finding out that a lot of their gold bars are actually fake gold bars. They're counterfeits. And, you know, they were tricked and so on and so forth. As I'm looking at all that, to me, there's a pattern in all of it. There's dots to connect, and I think there's something really off and wrong about that. Period. Like, directly. And I think people need to do their own research on that subject, because that's just, something's wrong. Because if that's true, if the Federal Reserve was a part of that, the fact that they don't have gold and then they try to pass off fake gold to another country, that has a disastrous implications for our economy and certain other things. But I leave that up to you to, you know, do your own research and discover and blah blah blah. Alright, that's it. Thank you for watching another episode of Firesidechats. Tune in next time. Take care. Peace.